All right, there's a woman named Gabby Petito. She actually looks like somebody I know, somebody from Colorado from years ago. So obviously, it's not the same person. However, let's see if I can get the camera to work and show you a picture of this young woman. All right, let's see. I can't actually see what I'm filming at the moment, so I don't know if you can see that. Um, this is Gabby. This is her boyfriend. His name is Brian Laundrie. Here's some more pictures of Gabby. She was last known to be in Moab, Utah. There's the vehicle that she was in when she disappeared. It's a van, a white van. There's another picture of her. I don't know if you guys can see this. The last time that she spoke to anybody that she knows is August 30th. She sent her mother a message. Now, Gabby's fiance is not cooperating with the police. That's the difference between actual predators and people who are trying to help. When Selena Not Afraid disappeared, the people who were with her, especially the one who was with her sister who was killed outside of the Billings airport, kept their mouth shut. Selena Not Afraid was murdered by exposure. There is no way that anybody in that area of Montana is not going to have it register immediately that leaving a woman without adequate clothing in a storm like that she's not going to fucking survive it. But they didn't want to say nothing because they didn't want to incriminate themselves. With Gabby Petito missing and her fiance not cooperating, not trying to help find her, it really does set off a lot of red flags now, don't it? Now, luckily for the family of Gabby, this is all over the news. People in Utah and Wyoming need to look out for the young woman. Anybody who might know something or might remember something, any of you who might actually watch this video who are in the Utah area or know anybody in the Utah area, try to find something out. What route did she take? What gas stations would she possibly have stopped by or driven by? What days? When Natalie Bollinger disappeared, me and Natalie had all sorts of bumps and roadblocks and all sorts of crap that was making life difficult. Not just for her, but especially for me. Despite that, when she disappeared, I did everything that I could to try to help find her. Her family wasn't trying to help find her. They were too busy trying to blame me. They were too busy trying to hate me and point fingers at me. The same thing with the police and the same thing with the media. They didn't care what the truth is. They still don't. They sold their narrative and they don't want to get in trouble for selling the wrong narrative. They don't want to get in trouble because the bullshit that they sold got people killed. And I mean that literally. Tibor Hatay was killed at Clearview Behavioral Health by a method that I had spoken out about that is illegal. And I spoke out about those instances specifically with Clearview. Clearview was known in the state of Wyoming and here in the state of Nebraska for being pretty fucking crooked. Chapel, Nebraska's only got a population of about 500. And despite that, I'm not the only person in this town who was ever at Clearview. The other person in this town that I know that was at Clearview didn't have anything good to say about it either. You can't have her name because she is still underage. However, the issues that we're having right now is that this group setting that we're stuck in. Oh, well, we got to focus on the Native Americans who are going missing. No, we need to focus on the black people who are going missing. Oh, we shouldn't care about this Gabby lady because all people care about is pretty white girls. And that's pretty well true. It is pretty well true that the police don't care unless it's a pretty white girl. Unless you got family that goes in with you. But then let's look at pretty white girls. Okay? Let's focus on, well, one of these pretty white girls, Teresa Massilia, who is a rape victim in Boulder, who fought off her attacker. Her attacker, the man who raped her, was never brought up on charges. But Teresa Massilia was charged with assault for fighting off her attacker. Teresa Massilia is a pretty white girl. Does that make it okay that she was raped? Does that make it okay that she was victimized by Boulder Police Department and the Boulder County Sheriff's Department for trying to turn in her predators? Is that okay? No, it's not. Now, the chances of Gabby being found alive are not that great at this point. There's a lot of predators that were in Natalie's life, a lot of them. Natalie Bollinger was high risk. She was addicted to heroin. She was addicted to methamphetamines. And she had a rivalry going on with her twin sister that was unhealthy. Natalie Bollinger was extremely high risk. She was tiny, which tells a predator that he could easily physically overwhelm her. She was pretty, which makes her desirable. She was addicted to drugs, which gave any predator who had access to those drugs a way into her life. Natalie Bollinger needed people like me in her life for a reason. She specifically asked for me to be in her life for a reason. She also pursued me for a reason. Now, so far, what I've read about Gabby Petito, I haven't seen anything about drug addictions. I haven't seen anything about alcohol consumption or heroin use. What I see as somebody who is trying to live life, who probably is not alive anymore. Now, a lot of people, when Natalie first disappeared, told me things like, well, maybe she just went out to party with her friends and didn't tell anybody. Maybe she just went up into the mountains to party a bit, which is, pretty popular in Colorado. Go up and have a bonfire, or, well, in a lot of cases, it ends up being a bunch of stupid people drinking. But the fact is, that didn't end up being the case. I wanted to believe that that was a possibility, that maybe she was just out partying. But I also knew the risks. I was afraid that her father, Ted Bollinger, or her ex boyfriend, Tim Beeson, had killed Natalie. That they were trying to, either Ted was trying to hide the crimes that he committed against her, that I spoke out about, or Tim Beeson had killed her for the same thing. Maybe she told Tim Beeson no, and he shot her in the head. It ended up being Joseph Michael Lopez, but that doesn't change the fact that Ted Bollinger and Tim Beeson are just as dangerous. With Selena Not Afraid, she was murdered straight up. She was murdered by exposure. And I was hoping the same thing that people were telling me with Natalie when Selena Not Afraid disappeared. I was hoping, obviously beyond hope, that she was still alive, that somebody had picked her up and taken her somewhere safe, because the people who had dropped her off in that storm did some horrible things. Now, I'm going to stop here for a second to bring up the trolls that are always ever present here. One of them here calls himself Rich Life, sells Vicodin. And Rich Life sells Vicodin, typed, "Are you Ativan?" And then there's a person calling themselves Gigi, saying, "You owe me 36 milligrams of Ativan. I'm going to serve some papers on you." This is called trolling. I get a lot of people like this. Matter of fact, based on what they're typing, it tells me that these are a couple of people who have been banned from my YouTube channel already, many times. Somebody who calls themselves Donald Troll typed trolls. Hey, Donald Troll. Now, calling somebody a troll, that's something that through all of this, people have been trying to call me mentally ill to try to justify their crimes. Oh, well, it's okay that we did this because he's mentally ill, or he must be lying because he's mentally ill. In reality, we got a really screwed up situation going on here. When I say trolls, I get treated like I'm talking about, actual trolls. No, I'm talking about internet nut jobs like GG and Rich Life sells Vicodin. People who type things like this are trolls. GG typed, "I'm going to sue you for stealing my Ativan. I need Ativan for telekinesis." This is someone who has obviously been on my post before. Someone who has done it repeatedly over and over and over and over again. And they've been blocked. Every time I block them, they make another profile and pop back up here again. And then they start in on the telekinesis crap. Do you have telekinesis? Do you have telekinesis? These guys don't care about other human beings at all. I mean, these are very serious situations here. Tiber Hatay, I'm sure that his family misses him very much. I'm sure that Gabby's family misses her very much. It's hard enough for them to have to miss their families the way that they do. And then I'm sure that they probably have to deal with people just like these assholes. Same thing with Selena Not Afraid. These are actual human beings. Now, normally I wouldn't pick up a big case like this for my YouTube channel. I would just speak about it because I know that there's already millions of people in America who have seen her story, heard her story, read her story. And not enough people know mine. Not enough people know Natalie's. But at the same time, this family, unlike Natalie's family, who obviously didn't actually love Natalie, they pushed her to the point of suicide on multiple occasions before I ever met her. By the time I met Natalie, when she was 13 years old, she was already scarred up one arm and down the other from cutting on herself because of her dad raping and molesting her. This is serious shit. All right. Rich Life Sells Vicodin also has a profile of Rich Life of Tylenol. See, these trolls, they do this for entertainment. When your loved one dies, these assholes get on and harass you. They get on and make fun of your dead loved ones or your missing loved ones and type a bunch of useless crap. Now, someone calling themselves Ixith2 typed, "Can we see your BB gun collection?" No, you can't. See, if I have a BB gun in my hands on a YouTube video, and mind you, this kind of weirds me out because there are gun sight channels where people actually have firearms in their hand, actual guns, and they're shooting them at things, and they're on YouTube. But if I have a BB gun in my hands, I got to deal with trolls trying to destroy my voice and trying to destroy my YouTube channel. And the video gets taken down because I have a BB gun in my hands. So no, you cannot see my BB gun collection. By the way, they're not all BB guns. The bright red M16/AR-15 and the blue AR-15/M16, it's actually it fires Nerf darts. Now, why do I have these things? Why do I have those BB guns? Well, I wanted to start a business with all this COVID stuff going around and the social distancing. I figured some airsoft wars, well, you're not shooting each other with them BB guns from 2 inches away. You're not within 6 feet of each other. Most of the time, you're not within 60 feet of each other. Now, I got the 2 Nerf guns so that a friend of mine can teach his children proper firearm safety. It is important for people to know how to shoot back. It is important for people to know how to handle a firearm because if there's a situation where they're scared shitless and it's the first time they've had a firearm in their hands, they feel they need it, but they don't know how to use it. And with something like that, if you don't know how to use it, it's just as dangerous to the user and innocent bystanders as it is towards somebody who's trying to hurt you, if not more so. I have no idea how many times I've seen so-called professional shooters pull the trigger on their videos and the safety's on. Well, in a moment of life and death, if your safety is on and the person who is shooting at you doesn't have their safety on, you're gonna die. They're gonna shoot you. Now, what does all this have to do with Gabby? Really nothing. These trolls got nothing to do with Gabby. What they have to do is with the sickness in their head that tells them that these things are okay. A sickness in their head that compels them to be bullies, and assholes when people are going through some extreme shit. Gabby's family, I'm sure that if they were reading what's coming up on my chat over on the side here, the live chat, of course, I'm sure that they would be sickened by it. IX2 typed, was all your personal belongings there at home when you got out of jail? No, they weren't. By the way, I was in prison. I was sent to DEC and LCC. LCC is Lincoln Correctional Center. I was there because the 4 people in this town that I tried to turn in, that being Leslie Snell, Sheriff Scott DaCosta, who Leslie Snell works for, a registered sex offender named Robert Warnick, who is friends with Leslie Snell, who threatened my life repeatedly, followed me around town repeatedly, and assaulted me, and then stalked me after assaulting me. And then, of course, there's former Denver deputy William Barr. Those 4 people slandered my name and worked together to do it because they knew that I was trying to turn them in. They knew that I was trying to turn them in because right here on this channel, I spoke up about it and said what I was doing. I had to. If I speak out about what's going on and then they pull the BS that I expected them to pull, and they did pull the BS I expected them to pull, at least I have evidence that I was trying. I have evidence, because I was trying to turn them in, that they had motive for committing the crimes that they committed, and they did commit crimes. After spending 7 months locked up for crimes that I didn't commit, they had to drop the charges. Do you know why? Because there's no evidence of it. The things that they claimed happened did not happen. They did not happen. It's hard to have evidence of a crime that was not committed now, isn't it? See, here's another troll here. GG typed, I'm gonna false terminate your YouTube channel and I will point and laugh at you. See, this is very much the Nazi BS that I expect out of trolls. Not just trolls, but also out of the Bollinger family and their followers. The Bollinger family are a bunch of rapists and child molesters, alcoholics who beat their children. Despite that, despite the horrible things that her family did to her and to me, when Natalie disappeared, despite all of the hatred that I got, I still tried to do the right thing. I still tried to help find Natalie safely. I tried to give her every penny that I had so that she could find a safe place. And of course, Gigi wants to be a troll here. Gigi type PLS, kill me, PLS, kill me, PLS, kill me. It says this message is held for review. Well, let's show this video, or let's show this. We'll put it up here on the side. This is why the United States is such a disgusting country. But it's not just the United States. We got trolls like this from all over the world. I've been trolled from people in India. I've been trolled from people in Africa. I've been trolled from people in Europe and Russia. I've been trolled by people all over the place. And yet I still speak up. It's not the internet trolls that you need to worry about. It's the people that you encounter in real life. Most of the time, it's your dad. Most of the time, if you're raped or molested as a child, it's your dad who did it. 80% of the time, it's one or the other of your parents. For Natalie, it was her dad, but it wasn't just her dad. There's also, well, the fact that that abuse is still ongoing for millions of people in America. Millions of people are given a choice between living with their predator or being locked up because they told on their predator. How sick is that? Teresa Massilia has to hide because they want her to be locked up because she turned in the man who raped her. Now, despite the fact that much of my evidence was stolen, much of it was destroyed, I still got a lot of it back. I'm fighting real hard here to try to show the truth. Not just for Natalie, not just for Selena Not Afraid, not just for Gabby. There's a lot of people that I know who disappeared that were eventually found. Casey was found, and that was a good thing. Sarah was found. That was a good thing. Hannah Pendergrast was found, and that's a good thing. But there's also people like Nathan Forrest. He was found dead in Wyoming. There's a woman here in town who actually knew him. He was her nephew. He was in the state of Colorado to try to get a pound of weed. We got to do something. Gabby is not the first person to disappear. She's not going to be the last. When it comes to MMIW and MMIP, let me tell you how screwed up this is. MMIP stands for Missing and Murdered Indigenous People. But when you say missing and murdered Indigenous people, folks tend to look the other way. But if you focus specifically on the women, people are more likely to take a look. So there's MMIW, Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women. They got to pretend that all the men that are disappearing don't exist. We got to just focus on the women, because if we say anything about the men who are disappearing, we got to deal with everybody saying, oh, well, they're probably on drugs. They're probably alcoholics. But somebody might actually care about the women. But there's also the fact that it's not just Native American women disappearing. It's not just Native American men disappearing. When people are silent, that's usually the first clue that they're hiding something. When Natalie disappeared, I didn't keep my mouth shut, and I still haven't, and I still won't. What her family did to her is horrible. What they did to me is horrible. But then we got to deal with the fact that law enforcement is pretty much useless. In a lot of these cases, police did more to help the predator than to help the victims. The people who dropped off Selena Not Afraid miles away from anything in the middle of a storm literally murdered her. Brian Laundrie, there's a pretty good chance that he murdered Gabby Petito. When you've lived in the system, you know how the system works, or rather, how it doesn't. When you've had to go through this missing persons bullshit, you realize how screwed up it truly is. When Selena Not Afraid disappeared, well, just like when most Native Americans disappear, it's their friends and family that go out and look for them and organize search parties. Selena Not Afraid was the first one where the police actually got actively involved nearly efficiently. But then again, before her autopsy was ever done, they said that she died of natural causes because she died of exposure to the elements. That's not a natural cause. You got a warm vehicle with four other human beings or five other human beings. That's the safe place for you to stay. If you are not staying near your shelter, there is something extremely dangerous about that shelter or going on at or around that shelter. And if you're willing to run off without a jacket in weather like that, you are scared. Selena Not Afraid was afraid for her life. When she left that vehicle in Montana, there is no other reason for her to leave that situation other than fear. IX2 type, they be talking bad about 9/11 and all that stuff, but don't talk about the dead children and 100 million natives that were murdered. You're right, IX2. Myself and another lady that I know who's a witness to at least part of the situation I've been through. Her name is Mandy. She lives here in Nebraska. And she's been fighting for missing and murdered indigenous people about half as long as I have. And I'm glad for that. I'm glad that Mandy exists. Just like me, Mandy is a white person. You don't have to be Native American to fight for Native Americans. You don't have to be black to fight for blacks. I grew up in the system. One of the kids that I grew up with, he was locked up for killing his grandparents. Another kid I was locked up with, he was locked up because he raped his sister to death. He didn't beat her to death. He didn't stab her to death. He didn't shoot her to death. He raped her to death. Five children on average die every day in the system. We shouldn't worry about that, right? Because it's only five people. No, we really should. These are children. A lot of people are aware that the three groups that I fight the hardest for, number one is children. Number two is the homeless. And number three is the disabled. These are the three most victimized groups in this country. Now, Gabby Petito, was she part of any of those groups? Was she victimized for being disabled? Was she victimized for being a child? Was she victimized for being homeless? I mean, she was technically how they were living. She was homeless. When you have a vehicle, you're not exactly not homeless, but you're not exactly considered homeless by the homeless community. Gabby was traveling across the country in a white van. She was sort of homeless. She was not a child, though. She was 22 years old. Natalie was not a child. She was 19 years old. Selena Not Afraid, however, is a child, or was when she was killed. Now, although Gabby Petito is not Native American, Mandy is not racist. Neither am I. We don't just speak out about missing Native Americans. We don't just speak out about missing white people. We don't just speak out about missing women. We speak out for all of the victims because somebody has to. Now, if you look at Gabby, she looked pretty young. She didn't look 22, did she? She's got a familiar face. She looks like a young woman I used to know back in Boulder, Colorado, but she's not from Boulder, so obviously it's not the same woman. Now, the reason I felt like going on this rant tonight, the reason I started this, earlier tonight, there was now I shared Gabby's story day before yesterday, and I shared another story about her yesterday. But there's a group called Court Victims United. And in that, there was a lady who's going through similar stuff to what I'm going through. And while I was messaging on Court Victims United with Miss Francis, there was another friend of mine who posted up about Gabby. And I felt, since Gabby is still missing, she hasn't been found. She's only been missing technically since August 30th. Something can be done to find her. The population in Wyoming is tiny. Even if everybody in the area that she disappeared in, and that's if they knew where exactly she disappeared, which they don't. If they did know where she disappeared, and everybody in that area went out and searched for her, they still have almost no chance of finding Gabby. The only chance they have of finding Gabby is hoping that her boyfriend slips up and speaks up and says something that helps to lead to her body. And that's really what we got to be looking at this point. Natalie Bollinger, I was hoping she was still alive, but she's not. Because I was forced into homelessness over her death. I didn't know she was dead until well after the rest of the world knew. I still take flack from that. I still take abuse from it. Matter of fact, I spent 7 months locked up this year over the domino effect from Natalie Bollinger being shot in the head. Now, I noticed that the trolls haven't typed on here in quite a while. I'm glad for that. It'd be nice if these trolls, instead of spending their time getting on the internet to harass people who are trying to do something good, it would be nice if they would try to do something good themselves. It'd be nice if these people would try to help find Gabby as well. It'd be nice if these people would get the word out. Moab, Utah. Gabby apparently had just crossed the border into Wyoming the last time anybody heard from her. There was a situation with the police in Moab, Utah, We don't know any details because it's not being released. But somebody's got to know something. And I'm sure that Gabby's family would like to know what happened to her. You guys, instead of taking my word for any of this, don't take my word for it. Look it up. Actually, look it up. Y'all be safe. I'm going to be trying to collect other people's stories and speak out about other people too. I'm not the only one going through this. I have a YouTube channel and I have at least some people who listen to my videos. Maybe one of those people, even if they can't help me, maybe they can help one of these other people. Maybe they can help Gabby. Maybe they can help Francis. There are 3 other people from Court Victims United whose stories are on my YouTube channel. 2 of them had their kids taken. Both of those people now have their kids back. They won their court dates and now they're trying to sue. That's a good start. Anyway, y'all be safe.